I want to ask you first about the news of the day. We have seen this energy crisis in the United States, Texas power going out, rolling blackouts. What do you make of all this?
Of course, the crisis today in Texas is something that hasn't been seen before. I mean, for Texas to get, the temperature they have and the snow and the ice and so on is something unheard of. I think this is a one-time event in, a few centuries, I think, or at least few decades. We've not seen something like that. I personally lived in Texas for some time, so I know that they are not used to snow. And of course, all the facilities and everything around the oil and gas, infrastructure is not set up in that area. Maybe in the north they are, but not in the south. So it's a temporary thing, and hopefully they'll get things back to normal soon. But it did disrupt, the oil market, especially in that region. So
you think it'll go away? It will.
Yeah. I'm sure they're very resilient. I mean, the oil and gas industry in the U.S. is very resilient, and I'm sure they'll get over it soon.
Well, you're about to undertake, as head of QP and Energy Minister of Qatar, a massive expansion of the country's LNG capacity. Explain to me, you had this on the books for a long time, but it was delayed just slightly with the coronavirus. Why now? How does this work out as an investment and a market thesis?
As far as the Northfield expansion projects, we have two projects, Northfield East, which we just announced sanctioning, and the Northfield South. So the Northfield East would take us from 77 million tons to 110 million tons per annum. And then Northfield South, which we will announce early next year, will take us to 126 million tons. We've announced our strategy. Our strategy is very clear and is defined. These are very robust projects. We just mentioned last week that the total project cost for Northfield East is $28.75 billion to produce 32 million tons per annum of LNG by 2025. This is one of the most competitive, if not the most competitive project on the planet today. And we're very proud of that, and we're moving ahead for our long-term vision of reaching 126 and maybe more.
One more on the expansion. You are inviting international oil companies to bid for up to 30% typically of this project. What are you looking to see as you evaluate these bids? What's exciting to you?
Yeah, what we did is very unique this time in Qatar. We had never gone into, we had never gone 100% QP in the past. Now we have sanctioned this project as 100% QP, but we like the joint venture model where we have international companies join us in developing these projects, but we already are proceeding as 100%. And we're inviting them. We had invited them for some time, to come in to this project. But what happened at the end is everybody had a different capital cost assumption, and we wanted to have certainty for our partners to come in and have certainty in the investment that they're coming into, and they understand exactly the capital cost and so on, and then they can come in and actually compete to give us the best bid.
Would you offer them better terms as buyers of your LNG if they come in as a part of the project?
They would have to offer us better. They would have to. As a buyer, they'd have to offer us a better deal for them to get a part of our development. Our project is very robust. Our project is one of the most robust projects at any oil prices that you see. Even testing it at $20, it would be a viable project.
Let's talk about some of your contracts. You'll have lots of new supply in order to sell to the market. You are a fan of long-term contracts, typically linked to oil. When you look philosophically at all of the LNG that you're producing for the market, what percentage do you want as long-term? What percentage do you want as short-term, tied to spot? And is there anything else? Is there a third way as well?
No, I think long term is the best approach. It's the best approach for both sides. It's the best approach for the buyer. It's the best approach for the seller. It has really certainty of the demand that is required. You understand what's required by each country for their long term. They have some winter requirements that are different than summer requirements. They have storage requirements and so on. So once you have a contract with a solid supplier like Qatar that has a proven track record over more than 20 years of not missing a single cargo for any customer, okay, then you have certainty of supply. And these are all tied, or the majority are tied, with very essential power projects that have a national security element of supply for the country. I think a lot of the countries would look at long-term stability as something that's important. There is this fallacy that LNG is traded like a commodity, and that you can just have spot market, almost endless spot market, and so on. It's not true, and it was proven just by two, I think, of the plants coming offline for technical interruptions that normally happen in any plant, where you saw gas prices skyrocketed to more than 30. I mean, we had gas prices that were close to $2 because of the pandemic last year, and this year we had gas prices close to or more than $30, and that instability in the market and big spikes are not good for the buyer or the seller. So I think, to answer your question, I think 10% or thereabouts of our production to be in spot would be something reasonable. We would not want to, but we would be capable of doing either.
There are some analysts who believe that the demand for natural gas is going to peak somewhere around 2035. I'm guessing that's not your view.
Okay. You see, peak oil was discussed maybe 20 or 30 years ago, where they thought that the peak oil is coming much sooner than I mean, it's already passed. I think in some analysts 20 years ago, we already should have peaked and are coming down, which didn't happen. And I think there is, you see, for what we require in the future, there is a definite requirement to move to cleaner fuel. And there is a transition that's happening, and I think renewable are going to be a big part of the future. There is absolutely no doubt. And I think we owe it to the world and to our children to be more responsible in what we do and how we do it in the future. So that's definitely something that I believe in very strongly. What is required, I think, for you to go to a transition to something that's really unknown to be fully renewable is almost impossible because of the intermittence of renewable. I mean, when you talk about wind is not going to be there all the time, and it's not going to be there in every country. If you talk about sun, it's going to be available in Qatar 365 days, but not everywhere else. So renewable is something that will definitely happen. We're doing a lot of renewable ourselves, but I think you need gas to complement that. So I think gas really is sort of in a Catholic marriage with renewable, in my view.
Okay.
Yeah. So they would need to stay together for a very long time for you to have the transition and to have it successfully. If you look at what people don't talk about today, 30% approximately of the world power is actually fired by coal. Okay, if you take the North Field Expansion NFE project that we just sanctioned last week, just the NFE, not the NFS, and you just take that project and you say, I'm going to replace that volume of gas to fire up electric generation instead of coal, you actually reduce the CO2 emission in the world by 125 million tons per annum. That is equivalent to 25 million cars emissions in a year.